Hello, and welcome to Scraps of Life, a podcast about art, animals, and the stories behind them, with your host, Jennifer Vanderbeek. Hi there, this is episode 00, our pilot episode. What does it all mean? What is Scraps of Life? Or the more accurate question to ask would be, who is Scraps of Life? Scraps of Life is me. It's been my online identity since 2003, which in internet terms is what, the Jurassic era? It's ancient. That was 22 years ago. And wow, okay, that just hit. Anyway, I have been using that name online and since I registered the name for my website. And yes, you can find information about me and past projects at scrapsoflife.com. You can also find my art portfolio at jennifervanderbeek.com. At any rate, that's not the point. Um, Back in the early aughts, when I came up with Scraps of Life, everyone assumed that it had something to do with scrapbooking. Scraps, scrapbooking, sure, I get it, but no, that's actually not the case. It really means and meant the bits and pieces, all the little things, all these scraps of time and moments and energy that come together to make up a life. So that has always been the idea behind Scraps of Life. In, oh gosh, I guess it would have been '07. So about 4 or 5 years later. Yep. I started a web comic and I shortened Scraps of Life to just Scraps as my signature. I have been on the hunt for the perfect nom de plume or nickname or what have you since I was probably in third grade. There were four Jennifers in my third grade class, and that's one class out of maybe like two or three third grade classes at the time. Maybe there were more. I don't know. I was 8. I don't remember that specific, but I do remember there were an awful lot of Jennifers, and so for the longest time, I have wanted a name that was not so common. These days, I'm okay with my name. Jennifer, and my last name, Vanderbeek, is my married name, and it makes for a very long signature. I will say that, but I've made peace with my name. But when I was doing comics and other artwork of that time, probably up until 2013 or so, when I got married to Todd and took the last name Vanderbeek. Yeah, I was just going by Scraps. If I had to do a signature that wasn't like work related, yeah, that's what I would sign it as. And Scraps of Life, the website, has gone through many, many, many iterations over the years. These days, I am a mixed media textile artist, and that name, Scraps of Life, it kind of encapsulates what I do too, because I concentrate on wildlife and conservation, um, things like endangered species, plants, animals, all the good stuff. But also, in textiles, my special interest is textile waste. So I am using literal bits and pieces, little scraps, upcycling fabrics, repurposing fabrics, and those are my main components. So Scraps of Life is, like I said, it's even more appropriate now. Um, Now about me, yes, I am an artist, I'm an illustrator, I'm an author. I work in the nonprofit sector currently. That is my, I'll say, official second career. But I spent 25 years as a bookkeeper, a very non-creative field, and a lot of people are surprised to hear that because they don't think of accountants and bookkeepers as being artists or creatives. I keep meeting more of them, so I know that I am not a unicorn in that respect, and I'm okay with that. It's kind of validating to see more of us, but it is not the normal type that we think of, right? It's very left brain, right brain, and it's while everybody has both hemispheres working, we generally, that whole concept is that some people are more right brain, some people are more left brain. Well, think that I have a pretty good balance from the day to day. So I spent 25 years as a bookkeeper, but to say that that's all I was doing would be gross misunderstatement. During those 25 years, I almost always had some sort of side projects going on, whether it was the webcomics that I mentioned earlier, the blogging that I did since 2003 in various forms. I went to culinary school and I was a pastry chef for a hot minute. I wrote a cookbook. I have run a previous podcast. It was an indie music podcast, and I loved doing that. Um, I worked with manufacturers on their design teams, creating content for their websites or their YouTube channels. Um, I have always done a whole lot of creative things, even when I was doing the very non-creative job as a bookkeeper. That came to an end shortly after the pandemic in 2021. I had the probably once in a lifetime opportunity to leave my job, to call bookkeeping quits and focus on creative. Focus on what I really wanted to do and what I thought was I was meant to do on this earth was be creative and share that creativity. That turned out to be a 3-year sabbatical of sorts. I published four. I almost forgot the last one. I published 4 books in a cozy mystery series. I published 4 adult coloring books. I republished or re-released my comic book cookbook for gamers, What to Feed Your Rating Party, as a second edition and ebook format on through Amazon. I did a lot of things. I also worked part-time for almost a year at our local yarn shop and got to do that and got to be around creative people and help people. And I was just like, I was like a duck in water. I was happy. Yeah, so I took those 3 years to really kind of refocus. I also, at the end of those 3 years, I had my first art show. Instead of being one of many in a collective show, I was one of 2. I had a joint show with another local artist, and preparing for that show was a monumental task. And we'll go into more details about that as we go through the series of talking about the stories behind my collection, which is known as the Patch Menagerie, and the next collection, which is known as the Red Hills collection, and all the things that go into those, and all of the side projects. One, if you're watching the video of this, you can see over here where I'm pointing. This is a fabric streetscape that I'm working on for a different project. I'm not great at staying in one lane. I never have been. I always have to have half a dozen things at minimum going on because that's how my brain works. But yeah, I this is what I do now. And at the end of those 3 years, I was like, I need to get back into the workforce. The money that facilitated my sabbatical had run out, and so I was job hunting, and I was job hunting while I was preparing for my art show. And yeah, that was a lot of pressure, and it came down to the wire, let me tell you. But I ended up finding probably my dream job, honestly, working with a local art center in the nonprofit sector and getting to help organize classes for kids and adults and help with events and just it's just been I've been there 9 months now, and truly I feel like all of my varied skills, both the bookkeeping, the logic side and the creative side, come to play in my current career, and I could not be happier. And I also get to still create art, and that for me, of course, is the icing on top. Is I have these opportunities, and I feel so fortunate. A few more things about me. I love music. My current main listens right now are Pink and Brandy Carlisle. I love listening to autobiographies in audiobook format. Even better if they are read by the author, but sometimes that's not possible. I am always in search of the perfect playlist for any mood or situation. I occasionally play video games, but things like Stardew Valley and other cozy games, not so much like battle or anything like that. I like puzzle games and cozy, fun, casual games. Oh, and I love a good theme party that requires a costume. Anything that gives me a chance to create a creative outfit. I am happy as a clam. One of the questions that might come up or does come up when I show my work is why fabric? Why textiles? Part of that has to do with just learning to crochet and sew at an early age. I was taught how to crochet and hand sew, I don't know, somewhere in like 6, 7, 8, that age range. And I always really loved it. Also, I have a hard time letting go of things. I have like the collector mentality. I don't want to let go of something if it is even possibly useful. Um, I have learned I have learned some things about myself. I try and keep it this side of a problem. Yes, my studio is packed with things. You can see some things behind me. That stack over there is just my notebooks and sketchbooks, and not even all of them. I was doing some cleaning up, and I'm like, wow, I need to find a better place for these. But I'm in the middle of projects, and my studio is quite usually chaotic. But I'm happy in a certain amount of creative chaos. But even I have limits and have to tidy up from time to time. But yeah, so I never liked to get rid of little bits of paper, of fabric, of anything. Cool containers, boxes. I mean, I save them. I try and find ways to use them. I'm happy that my art practice now is starting to make use of some of that stockpile of random stuff because now I feel very justified. Another factor in my love of fabric and textiles is that Pretty in Pink came out when I was 10 years old. And I so wanted to be Andy. Back then, who didn't want to be Molly Ringwald? I mean, it was a whole thing, okay? But I wanted not so much to be her, but to have her skills. And people can argue about whether the pink dress at the end was good or not. And they do quite a bit. There's whole communities based around that dress. But the concept of being able to take things, disparate items, and combine them into something new always fascinated me. I love to find out how things work, why things work. Do I have that skill with clothing? No, not yet. It's been a constant evolution. Yes, I can make my own clothes, and I'm trying to do more of that. I'm sure that'll come up later in future episodes, but it seemed so seamless to me. Pun unintended. I still have fabrics from back then, from almost 40 years ago, that I have used in some of my current projects, and it's kind of fun to see those little bits of this and that I've carried with me all these years finally put to good use. And now, as to the last question of why create a podcast about this, is it just because I like to hear myself talk? Well, no, not really. As it happens, I was diagnosed late in life with ADHD. Makes a lot of things make more sense. That's neither here nor there. But I have learned that I do process verbally. new information, new concepts, working out issues. I tend to do that verbally. So you could say that I like to hear myself think, but that's not actually why. I can do that without recording. I've been told several times that my story, the process, and the research is just as integral to the art as what is hanging on the wall or sitting on a pedestal. And they've even gone so far as to say that if I ever did a podcast about my work and the research and the different social and current events that go into these works, that they would listen to it. So, all right, bet. Here we go. Let's see what happens. So, thank you so much for checking out this pilot episode. Next episode, we will talk about the actual origins of how the Patch Menagerie got started and my first sculpture, Gerald the Giraffe. And yeah, we'll dig deeper into the issues and ideas behind him. Until then, have a creative day.